Welcome, everyone. My name is Susie Q. Smith. I'm the conference director with The Word, and it is my honor and privilege to introduce tonight's event. We have some incredible writers here who are speaking with us and our beloved friends at Duende District. We're going to be hearing tonight from Leticia Urieta, author of Las Criaturas, and also reyes-boitel, author of Michael and Josephine. And here to tell you more about these authors is Angela Maria Spring with Duende District. Welcome, Angela. How are you this evening?
Thank you, Susie. Doing so well. Good evening, and a huge thank you to Susie and our wonderful friends at The Word. Always grateful to do events with y'all. You are the best. Just love doing it. If you haven't tuned in with us before, The Word is like, we're like besties at this point. And it's the best. I love it. It's like I'm here in Albuquerque, they're there in Denver, and it's just the best relationship. So thank you for these past 2 years. Such a phenomenal virtual event series and everything we've done. Thank you to everybody for joining us tonight. Again, I'm Angela Maria Spring, the owner of Duende District. Just a little bit about us. We're a collaborative pop-up bookstore by and for people of color, where all are welcome. And currently we do have pop-up boutique bookstores in Washington, D.C. and Albuquerque, New Mexico. And for those of you who are new to our bookstore story, the cornerstone of the Duende Project is about the collective, the community, and creation and decolonization of literary spaces by and for people of color. And as always, I am so excited. I feel like we have some of the best events anywhere, honestly. But tonight in particular, we are celebrating the amazing creative community in Texas and our friends at FlowerSong Press, who publish some of the most innovative work about and from the borderlands, and they champion so many Latinx voices. And tonight we welcome two of their authors, Leticia Urieta, whose fabulous and gorgeously atmospheric book, Las Criaturas, just dropped this month. I've been so looking forward to this one coming out, and she's going to be in conversation with the wonderful reyes-boitel. And we're going to get to hear each author read their work, and then they'll talk, and we can answer audience questions along the way. So if you have a question, please place it in the chat. And then Susie will kind of remind you along the way as well. And we'll drop links for the books as well. I keep saying as well, sorry. So thank you for listening to all of that. On to the main event. Leticia Urieta, hers, is a Tejana writer from Austin, Texas. She is a teaching artist in the greater Austin community and a freelance writer. She's a graduate of Agnes Scott College and holds an MFA in fiction from Texas State University. Her work appears or is forthcoming in Cleaver, Chicon Street Poets, Lumina, The Offing, Kweli Journal, Medium, Electric Lit, and others. Her chapbook, The Monster, was published by LibroMobile Press, and her hybrid collection, Las Criaturas, is now out with FlowerSong. And then Jo Reyes-Boitel, they, is a poet, essayist, and playwright. Jo is also a queer mixed-Latinx parent working in community who was once a music researcher and is currently a novice hand percussionist. Her work includes Michael plus Josephine, a novel in verse, and the chapbook Mouth from Neon Hemlock in 2021, as well as the operetta She Wears Bells. Jo is a member of the Macondo Writers Workshop and an MFA student at UT-Rio Grande Valley. So I'll let them take it away.
Thanks so much for having me. This is a wonderful space. I'm jumping for joy at Leticia's book being out in the world. I got to see snippets. She let me see snippets before, and I was like, it was almost worse to see snippets and not have it in the world, so I'm glad it is now. I'm going to read two short pieces. In looking at some of the themes that Leticia covers, I don't know that I can adequately cover them, I think, because some of the ways that she presents work is terrifyingly real. So I'm aiming for some of that, maybe. What we don't teach them. We don't teach them about men, not really. We don't teach them about how men can and do hurt women, especially young women. Instead, we spend our time guarding against those who look in passing, who slow down when a group of girls walk through after soccer practice, who whisper as they pass, things we already understand. We don't tell them the world is here to destroy us, turn us into obedient things, to be held down. We don't teach them until they come home with their own horror, and then the walls within us fall away, And we say too much. We say we are scared for them and pissed at the circumstance that this world has put us under. And it takes everything to keep our voices crisp but calm. And in the quiet after, we wonder, was it denial that held us back? Do we hope they will be seen? Or was it our own fear to be made troublemaker when, look, the world is changing? See now how my own child will one day be a doctor, and she will also, one early morning, miss her ride home and be stuck sitting outside a bar after closing with a man who sits 6 feet away but calls to her, sweet, like she's a kitten, and tells her she's pretty. That man, calling from the dark, will say this is a kind of equality, that she can be both a doctor and a victim. How could I think there wouldn't be a price to pay? And then, because I'm always trying to chill out after I write something like that, I wrote this piece called Shift. I remember my fingers dragging across the electric typewriter keys, mimicking writers through the repetition of short phrases pulled from books I read, repeating keys again and again until each was memorized. My makeshift desk, a piece of wood and 4 concrete blocks. My pens shaking in their cup, my stapler shaking, my books shaking, my whole body shaking, and the typewriter responsible for all of it, with one flick of its red on-off switch. I'm reminded of her card key ring, full of keychains. The ignition turned over in the car of the girl, a friend of a friend, who invited me to a party and offered to pick me up in her aunt's green 80s car, cruising low, a boat on still water. She insisted I sit next to her, the stick shift between my knees, her hand pressed against my thigh as she shifts down to drive, my friend sitting by the passenger door. The party's a bust, so we leave, returning to the car's embrace. The hum of its engine, the vibration against the asphalt, along alleyways, slinking next to the creek until her hands can't complete their turn and she reaches one arm across another, forces the wheel, leaves left, but it isn't enough, and we jerk and we slide in the front seat. When the wheels jump the curb, there are no hands on the wheel. When the screeching finally stops and our bodies finally stop, when our heads jerk forward, my face on the dashboard, the car's frame pushed in against the leg of an overpass. The girl helps me out by the arm, her voice soft as she leads me out the driver door. She checks me, talking and asking me to answer her. She holds my face in her 2 hands, her palms warm against my chin as she looks at me closely to measure the damage, her thumb rubbing against my lips, against my hurt. I would carry the noise in my shoulders for days after. Noise after the car accident, reverberating in my hands, up my arms, and up into my cheeks, my teeth trembling, bruising against my face, my lips swollen, busted along the bottom. But that morning after the accident, damaged and discolored, I sat with the typewriter, my mind full with story, ready for new lines. Thank you to Duende. Thank you to Leticia. Looking forward to hearing Leticia read now.
Oh, I'm like, ooh. I every time I hear Joe read, I'm always a little bit shaken up, just how beautiful your work is. And I know that we'll get a chance to talk about this a little bit more after I've read, but I just want to put out there that this book would not be out into the world, which is my first book, without Joe. She has been such an amazing friend and supporter and editor for this work, and really kind of pushed me to grow as a poet and a writer. And so I just am forever grateful for all of your support and mentorship. And yes, her work is just amazing. And yes, thank you so much, Angela at Duende District and Susie at The Word. Thank you so much for hosting this space. I'm going to read a few different pieces, but just some context. So this is my book, Las Criaturas. It's my first book, out now from FlowerSong Press. And it's a collection, a hybrid collection of poetry and prose that kind of explores, different genres, speculative fiction, horror, especially body horror, and the way that gender discrimination and violence against women and femme peoples, especially the most vulnerable people, how it changes the body, how it affects our psyches, and kind of the ways that we are often labeled monstrous in some way because of that. And so I'm going to read a couple of shorter stories and some of the poems. Thank you, Susie. The cover was created in response to the story I'm going to read first. It's a Scorpio baby because it came out during Scorpio season, which I love. And the artist Elaine Almeida, who is a student at UT Austin, created it, and it is really, really, really beautiful. It's like my favorite part of the book, maybe. So I'm going to read La Mujer Alacrán. Just a content warning, because I always like to say this. This book, or this story, begins with depiction of sexual assaults. It's not super graphic, but I always just want people to, protect their energy, because I know that can be really triggering for some folks. So. Un pico no más, and his venom was inside her. In the night, when the bed was an oven, he rolled on top of her, and she felt the sting against her back, pain spreading towards her thighs, and still amidst her cries, he felt the need to finish. Amidst the kisses and frantic hands, he wouldn't stop, and she felt the pain, the invasion, just as she did the sting of the scorpion, one of many that folded themselves between her sheets, inside her shoes, in the corners and cracks. When it rained in the summer, they all came inside to look for sanctuary. Some were still clear brown, others black as the desert shadows. She thought she had grown cautious enough, known when to shake out her sheets and protect her body from the sting. She thought that they could cohabitate. After this boy left her shivering, she went to clean herself. Flat on the sheet was a brown scorpion body, crushed under the weight of them. In the mirror, she saw a red dot swelling at the base of her spine. A year before, she spent a semester abroad in Durango, Mexico. There were men there called alacraneros. She remembered seeing their trinkets. These men overturned rocks, dug the creatures out of the dirt, and snatched them from people's homes to make souvenirs. Even nail salons specialized in alacran acrylics, ladies with inch-long nails that have baby scorpions under the gel. When she walked up and down the stalls in the mercado, she stared at the bodies of those poor arachnids, crushed and commodified under the glass. There was an amber necklace with light brown scorpion encased in sky. She bought it for 20 pesos and fastened the silver chain around her neck, because then it felt badass to have this deadly thing hanging close to her heart. These were the months she looked back on when she had always worn her wavy brown hair down, no matter how hot it was, just to feel the strands being pulled from her sweaty neck to be kissed. Those months when she never wore a bra and felt it was her right to keep nothing on but that necklace when she went to a new man's bed, insisting always on climbing on top so she could not be unseated. This was how she operated then, a mutual exchange in their territory, and then her slipping away feeling powerful. She liked the power of the necklace, though all her life she hated scorpions and feared them. Their ugly bodies appeared all over her house as a child, and though she grew used to them living in the desert, she had always asked her mother to sweep them out of the house with the broom, too scared to do it herself. Living unknown now, she was the one to sweep their furious little bodies across the doorstep, like curbing the tide of sneaking invaders. When she returned from Mexico to begin her last semester of college, the scorpion necklace was tucked away in the dark of her drawer under her socks. After that night, the pain in her spine increased and the dot grew larger. She didn't go to the doctor. It would be her fault for not protecting herself and her home better. It was just an irritated spot, she decided, and would heal soon enough with a cold compress. She was reacting to stress as the fall semester began to wind down. She didn't recognize her body's reaction. She couldn't sleep. When her body hair went smooth in patches and her skin started to harden into brown armor, she coated her body in aloe vera and took scalding showers. She only seemed to change faster. She began skipping class. She covered the bald patches on her head with hats and wore baggy sweatpants to cover the bump on her spine. Her nosy vecina in the apartment next door seemed to plan their encounters. Before that night, the old woman would hobble across the walk in her bata and house shoes to water the yellow patched lawn and offer to set her up with the old woman's handsome sobrino, a good Christian boy. Now the vecina let the water hose splatter her windows while she watched the girl pull her hoodie around her face when makeup no longer covered the darkening plates. When she even dropped the hose onto the lawn and grabbed the girl's wrist with unbelievable strength. "You don't look well. What's wrong?" "It's not really your business, ma'am." Every instinct told her not to talk back to this woman, that although she was appraising her every time she went in and out of the door, she was the only one to inquire if the girl was all right. Her question still came as an attack. "Just that I haven't seen anyone come in and out since that young man left." "Don't worry. You won't see much at all." She broke the woman's grip and stumbled off, pulling her hood strings tighter. From then on, she always peered out of the window before leaving home to make sure her vecina wasn't hanging around. Had the vecina seen her changing pupils, the cracks in her skin? She couldn't take that chance. A month after the attack on her body, she woke to find she could not peel her fingers apart. The skin of her hands was fused together. She could no longer steer a car. They were claws, bent and poised in defense. Still, she did not go to the doctor. In the past, when she complained to the doctor in the campus health center about stomach aches and painful infections, he was quick to dismiss her pain and shove a prescription for antibiotics into her hand. The last time, when it hurt to pee, he had pressed her soft abdomen with his gloved hand so hard that she cried out. "It can't be that bad," he told her while she clutched the area where his fingers were. What would he say if she dragged herself into the clinic in this new form? As a last resort, she walked to the house of a woman in her neighborhood that was known for conducting tarot readings and other healing rituals. She didn't know if she was a curandera or just another wispy, mysterious woman preying on her neighbor's superstitions. It was her only option, she thought. She waited inside the woman's living room, draped in red velvet hangings. 100 flickering candles billowed and smoked around the room. The walls were covered in crosses and emblems from every religion she could think of, and she thought bitterly that at least her spiritual bases were covered. When she was called to go to the back room, which was just the kitchen with a black woven tablecloth thrown over the kitchen table and candles around the perimeter, she sat across from the woman who called herself Cleolinda, Linda for short, dressed in jeans and an oversized faded t-shirt. This was the woman who was supposed to read her fate? "What can I do for you?" Linda asked. The girl removed her hoodie and shook her claws out from her sleeves to reveal her transformed self. Linda crossed herself, lit some incense on the table, and wafted the billowing smoke around them both in what might have been a protective circle. "My dear, what happened to you?" Here she wanted to speak, but her words turned to scratches and clicks in her throat. She thought of the veiled judgment of older women that used girls like her as a cautionary tale. She sat back in silence. Linda leaned towards her to see past the scales on her face. Let's cast the tarot and see what the cards have to say. Linda dealt the cards, then she flipped a select few over one at a time. The girl envied her nimble fingers despite the raised veins and age spots that covered them. She leaned forward to see the cards Linda turned over. The Empress, the Tower, Ten of Swords, Death. Don't be alarmed, the Death card does not mean physical death. What can it mean? She was unsure whether Linda would understand her rasping and clicking. The Empress is your feminine power, your essential self. Death could suggest destruction, but with destruction always comes renewal, and sometimes even a fruitful decision. You are at a crossroads after a life-altering moment. The Tower. The sword can be destructive too, but it can also be your own defense. You may need to summon an inner strength and become more powerful. Does this mean something to you? The girl nodded. She swept her pincer claws up and down her body to ask for a suggestion about what to do. Yes, I see. Your body is reacting to something, but I don't know what. Medicine may not help you unless you accept what is happening and why. There are no ointments or cures I can offer unless you admit to yourself why this is happening. Something festers inside you. Your body is defending against the pain. The girl sat back in the chair and rested her claws on her lap. A strand of hair floated from her scalp onto her arm, the last of her hair. There's one more card here, the Moon. This can mean transformation, evolution, intuition. No more. Linda did not charge her for her services. The girl could not have reached into her pocket either way. Your black sting is raised above you when the men come into your home. You dig a hole through the cement where the floor of your room used to be. They come in with weapons raised, probably because there is a smell like damp rotting and all the curtains are down, but you keep burrowing past tile, cement, and into the warm dirt beneath the place that was your house. Powerful claws, digging claws, are what you have now, and they scoop and separate, dirt flying behind you to create a space just right for your new body. A voice follows behind the men, that woman who wanted to help and just couldn't seem to stay away. When they step on the broken tiles behind you, they clatter. Your stinger is raised, but still you dig, even when one of the men picks up ripped clothes and locks of hair from the tumbled floor. That was the girl you. The hard black plates of your back, your gigantic sting swaying overhead is the only you left. They cannot hear your new name and your new voice, and you cannot remember the one they called you before. You crawl down into your hole and disappear into the earth. Take a pause for a moment. Okay. I'm going to read a poem now called Medusa Buys Eyeliner. A lot of the works in this book are kind of speaking to reimaginings of creatures in cultures that I am familiar with or kind of have a connection to, and also kind of familiar myths and traditional stories that have been meaningful to me. And so this is kind of one of those. Medusa buys eyeliner. Medusa picks out eyeliner at the pharmacy. She buys press-on nails that sparkle. She hasn't worn brightness on her body since she painted her mouth red. Her father smeared it across her face, paint that attracts unruly gods. Her Tinder profile reads, I am a betrayed woman not looking for fake friends, the kind that say they are saving you as they cut you down. Medusa won't wear white any longer. Her dress is stained from kneeling at the temple of strong women. Her date says he will meet her at a bar. She sits on the edge of her bed, swipes through profiles on her phone. The voices of her sisters echo, "Let them come to you." Before her date, the hairstylist tries to flat iron her hissing curls. They snap and bite, rearrange themselves in strike mode. And she pays for this, wishing she trusted the best way to care for herself. Her cave has a reflecting pool, her only mirror. It is a myth that she cannot see herself. Her shaky hand runs the charcoal pencil around her lids, and she embraces the darkness. After their date, she lets him lie in her bed, staring up at the stalactites pointing down daggers. His hand rests on her soft belly. He begs her to look him in the eye. She lines his stone body with the others, a circle around the pool. The next message she gets is a tenderness. A girl asks for a picture. Medusa takes a selfie, lets camera become a mirror that won't break under her stare. Thanks. I'm going to read another piece that is a little bit newer. A lot of my work, I started writing this book in 2016, so it's been a long time coming. Thank you. A lot of it in the beginning was a reaction to 2016 being a pretty terrible year in general, but especially the rhetoric coming out of the Trump campaign at the time, and also experiences that I was having in my graduate program dealing with kind of microaggressions from men in the program, and just other kind of experiences that were making me kind of very reactionary. And but I think over time I've also done more kind of work to explore my relationship with my body, especially as someone who lives with chronic illness and chronic pain. And so I think that's kind of an evolution that the work has gone through as well. So this is a newer piece that I added to the book that kind of speaks to that. This is called Sick Woman Travels to Distant Lands. You peel back the curtain. A swath of sunlight rides into the room, and you remember what it was to step into the warmth of the sun without cringing, without fear of the flare across your eyes, and then the pain. You have been in bed for 2 days. There is the hunger that rumbles through your body, the need to feed yourself, but then the churning inside your stomach starts and makes your body want to get rid of everything and become a blank slate. The world darkened when the virus spread. When you look outside, there were fewer kids playing in the street. People in masks rush by to get into their homes like they are re-entering a clean zone, their homes the safest places to be. But you've been home. Home is a sanctuary when the body is not, but even then it can become an island, impossible to swim away from when your pain becomes a contagion people don't want to see. On the night you come to me, it snows for the first time after 100 years. A portal opens. We meet on the snowy field at midnight, the winter moon full, casting light across the glistening whiteness. You walked here barefoot, peeling off your clothes until you arrived, naked and cool in the crisp air. You don't recognize me at first, but with time you will. First you bow in front of me on your knees, arms bent forward and head down so that your frizzy hair sweeps the snow, leaving traces. When I bow my head to you, you know that you can climb aboard my brown hard shell and lay across it like a starfish stuck to a rock. Your spine conforms to the curves of my shell. Your skin melts, becomes hot and sticky against me as we become one. All that we see are the tips of bare tree limbs and that full solstice moon watching us move slowly across the snow back towards the portal to my world. Your body has melded so seamlessly with my shell that you feel to me like a second spine, a layer of protection from the monsters of your world that would cage me or tear my shell from the rest of my body to consume me. This is why you don't scream as we cross the threshold, even as your naked skin turns from translucent white to red and begins to slough off of you into crisp layers that burst like a pollen bomb. Your body is becoming something entirely different. I move slowly to take you away from yourself, back to my home where pain is a song, a story from another world. Thanks, y'all. It's always fun. As someone with chronic pain, it's often much more accessible for me to do readings at home. But then also, sometimes I feel like I'm talking to the void. So I appreciate comments. Thank you. I think I'll read maybe one or two more pieces. And then maybe Joe and I can talk a little bit. Let's see here. I'm going to read this poem. It's definitely one of the weirder ones. It's called A Cautionary Tale. There is a rattling in the great hollow of my belly from the creature I swallowed, who keeps falling and falling inside me, screaming a name I don't know. The creature is running up my spine and flipping back over, filling my belly with burning. I know that they are choosing to scream and choosing to fall. This is the only story that they know. I swallow a match and hope that the swirling chasm of my belly does not extinguish the light as I sit in the cave to eat my dinner and the creature inside me sits in the cave of me and reaches for the falling match, a torch in their world that wouldn't recognize the carvings on the walls of my belly from the other creatures that have fallen in and can't find their way out of the story in my belly. They make up stories just to calm themselves at night around their campfires with their children, to tell them a tale of being stuck in the belly of a whale of a story that cares so little for them as long as they keep feeding me. If this is a story they want to tell and it will nourish my bones and keep me dry, then I let them yell and flip inside me, so long as they know that without my body, forged word by word, they would be nothing. Who came first, the light or the dark? Did the dark creep in before the light decided it needed to shine? And would there be dark without a light or light without a dark? This endless spinning made the universe explode and crash together to form a singular place where the creatures in my body could feel safe, that they are trapped in the spinning smoke of a story. Thank you, Valeka. Okay. I think I have time for, let's see. Yeah. I'll read one more. This is called Legacy. She was born with a supernova inside her face. She cried inconsolably when it would shine and surge inside her cheeks. But it wasn't until she turned 25 that her grandmother sat her down and explained that this star mass was smuggled in all the bodies of her foremothers when their galaxy was destroyed, and this was her legacy to bear. Some days the star mass glowed consistently, burning through her face, but when it grew and glowed, it set off explosions. On those days, she couldn't go to work, couldn't even leave her bed. The pain scorched through her. Her grandmother always told her that this was a privilege to carry this piece of their past inside her body, but never told her about the unbearable bouts of pain. She never told her how to manage the pain besides with cold compresses of lavender oil and a dark room where the fiery glow of her face would light the darkness. She would burn so bright that she would float off the bed, levitating with the cosmos inside her. Over time, the pain became too much to bear. She couldn't live her life this way. Friends who once gravitated around her were avoiding her calls. She used to go out dancing with them, but now she was confined to her room, and there was never a day without pain. Her doctors proposed an operation. When the surgeon cut into her face and scooped out the light, it fell into their hand as a heavy, smooth piece of shungite, a black star mass like a hardened tumor. She carried the heaviness on a necklace around her neck, and strangers reached for the smooth black stone and exclaimed how beautiful it was. Each time she touched its cold surface, she remembered the cost of relief. I think I'll stop there. Thanks y'all so much. Hey, Joe.
Hi.
I think you should talk about your new book a little bit.
Someone asks me every once in a while, and then I'm like, I should have a copy somewhere. It's a chapbook. I love it. I wrote it during COVID. I think once we were all kind of sent home, the quiet of my house that I guess I hadn't experienced or bothered to be aware about, suddenly kind of fell on me, and it was nice to be with my own thoughts. And I just realized, I think, as femme-bodied kind of women, the expectation of all that we're kind of expected to hold, all that kind of fell away. So even the niceties, even the things you enjoy doing at a job that you go into, that you make sure the coffee pot is full and before anybody comes in, that it's done, that doors are open, that you say hello in a certain way, that you cover paperwork, and that you look a certain way and you leave a certain way and you check all the doors, and those small expectations. And on top of that, like familial expectations or the burdens we put on ourselves, all that kind of fell away. And so the chapbook let me just kind of be a little mad at the stuff I'd kept burying. But with resiliency, I wanted to have some joy. And I think maybe there's only 2 poems in there that are joyous. I think the whole thing is joy because I'm still talking, right?
Yeah.
I think your work does similar. I think it says, like, here are all the facades we carry, and then we're going to just let all that fall away. And here's that inner monster that's not so terrible, that is trying to survive like anything else. So.
I think that's definitely something that, you and I have talked about before, and something that I keep kind of continuously coming back to. I've been watching and reading just a lot of horror in general over the past year. It's kind of just where my heart always is. I think the horror genre is doing, I think it doesn't get enough credit, and I think there are creators who are doing some really amazing things with horror, and especially like body horror. And that's kind of what inspired some of these pieces, is like, this idea of that unless you've experienced pain that kind of rips you open and makes you kind of your most real self, that you don't always understand kind of how often we're writing that line between life and death and like our kind of most monstrous or most real selves. And so, that transformation that pain can create, or that trauma can create, is always something that's on my mind, and something I just keep coming back to pretty continuously. So, yeah. And I like the way that you talked about the kind of stripping away and what comes out in the quiet, for sure. I think there was a question, actually. 2 questions. Okay.
Oh gosh.
Who did you read growing up?
I know you and I spoke a lot about Carmen Maria Machado, right? Because her work it's horror, but even like her last book, it's not outright horror, but there is a horror happening, you know? And I know that we connected on that, and we ended up kind of drafting a whole writing workshop around it, which was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
I always, I guess I love to be well read now. And so I'm always picking up, especially poetry. I have way more books than I have bookshelves, then I have space in bookshelves. So I'm always picking up new poetry, in particular, like Wo Chan has a book coming out next year. And then Paul Tran. Right now I'm reading, I just picked up, I have too many. They're all over.
Yeah.
So I just picked up this one. I Was a Bell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really intrigued. And so it's just everything. But I didn't come from a family that really saw the value of, I don't want to say education as a whole, because they saw the value of education. Of course, we saw it as a monetary thing. We were working class and we were immigrant. So my mom, I'm first generation on my mom's side. And so, and I taught myself to read. So my first books were her books, which were a little bit of the horror, but a lot of true crime, a lot of pictures of like Ted Bundy and all of those really horrible books that were so popular, and then she would have Santeria books, which were their own kind of horror because of the truth of the way people behave and how others try to kind of manipulate that. I would read bus stop signs. I would read, newspapers I could pick up. I would read magazines someone had thrown away. I picked up anything I could and had to teach myself to read. So it wasn't until like college that I'm like, oh, I can actually read and learn something. It doesn't have to be trash, but I can also gain some value and I have something to offer to the literary community.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably why I hoard so many poetry books now.
Yeah.
Tell me what you read, because I really want to get more into horror.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was just thinking because I'm like in my the office I share with my husband, and I have like a whole section of like YA, and because I work with youth, I have for a long time, but I also just love YA and I love reading books for youth. But yeah, like Goosebumps and I think like also the Christopher Pike books that were meant for teens that I feel like were some great storytelling. Like there was one about a goddess that was like reborn in someone's in a teen girl's body and like different stuff. I don't know. There's just like a lot of really cool stuff happening in his work. But that's kind of where I started. And then, my mom was a big Stephen King fan, so I kind of read some of his work, which I think is I still, care for a lot, but obviously like definitely is a product of its age and author. And so definitely has a lot of problems, both with racism and sexism, gender discrimination, et cetera. But yeah, I definitely now like, well, actually, one of the things that I love that our editor, Edward, was able to allow me to do in my book was to actually include a list of resources. So I actually have a list.
I have a book right here, and I
there you go.
haven't gone that far.
And I also have so I have a list of resources that I've been books I've been reading, some of which you gave to me, I think, and then some writing prompts that just might be helpful for folks who are trying to write weird stuff. But yeah, Penny Dreadful is a show I really loved. Supernatural, also a very problematic show, but still lives in my heart. And then I've been watching Chucky, the Chucky series. So just horror of all kinds. And then I think the next question, how we met. So I know we met through Resistencia bookstore, I believe, but I'm trying to remember if that was the very first time.
For me, it just felt like we just always knew each other and we just kept
Yeah,
running into each other. I don't have the exact first moment.
Same.
So we've just always known each other. We just hadn't met yet. So
yeah. We're just running in a lot of the same community, I think. And, you being in San Antonio and just traveling back and forth between those two spaces. So in Austin and San Antonio. So yeah. The last time we saw one another in person was AWP 2020.
Right. When all the San Antonio and Austin contingents were like, I'm hugging everyone. Let's do the last hugs.
I know.
Everybody else was really hands off already. And we were like, get on in here. If we're going to get it, we're going to get it together. But we didn't know.
Yeah, no, it was a very different time so early on in the pandemic.
We were reckless and young. And
yeah. Yeah, very true. But I feel like you and I've got,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I feel like you and I have at least gotten to interact virtually a lot this year. So
Yeah. So one of the questions they have that I would love to know is how your book will impact readers, how you hope it will.
you
'Cause I
know,
can see it in all kinds of demographics. I could take this into a high school. I could take this into a college. I could take it into community. It would work.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely am. Actually, I've done a couple of college, like, drop-ins and readings and things like that, and are planning to do some high school ones. And I definitely, there's some stuff in here that is, sexually explicit, or certain things that I would be like, oh, I don't know, especially in the kind of climate right now in which books are being censored and pulled from schools and attacked. I'm like very much aware of that possibility, which is horrifying in so many ways. But I do think that
Let them try. Girl. Let them
say what?
try. Let them try
Yeah.
to ban you. Forget it. It just makes you more wanted. I mean, remember Carmen Maria Machado's book that somebody was upset because it was an option out of like 40 options?
Yeah.
And
they brought a
some
dildo
bad woman got a
to
dildo. I mean, it was beautiful.
chef's kiss to that person who I feel like just outed themselves as like needing more.
Maybe that's the
sexual-
question. What object would they bring to show your book?
That's a good one. That's a very good question. I'm gonna think on that. But
I know.
ultimately, like I don't think that this book is is important enough to be a part of some kind of like book banning debate. But like, it's a small book from a small press. I just love that people engage with it, and if you connect to it in any way, if it makes you feel a little bit more seen, and if it makes you feel, one thing that in the resources page, like one of the reasons why I included some of those books or shows or what have you is like, yes, you are correct. I agree with that. But small books and small presses are a big deal. It's hard for me to talk about my work sometimes. But, one of the reasons why I included that list of resources is like, a lot of those were works that really helped open up for me what was possible to write. Like if you've gone through like a graduate program where, it is often very limited in what people are writing, or, you've kind of gone through an education or creative writing education through the public school system. And, it is very much like writing is one way. These were some works that really helped break that open for me. And I think once you can do that, you get to just live in so many new possibilities. And I hope that that is something maybe that this book can be for other people, is breaking open new possibilities of ways to write. And if that happens, I will be eternally grateful. So, yeah.
I can see this book being on a resource list for some future book.
I hope so. That would be great. Ooh.
I did a soundtrack for my Michael and Josephine.
Yeah.
But Michael Josephine is a novel in verse. It's about a queer. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think what it's about. It's a love story. It's a queer love story about Saint Michael reimagined as a lesbian who falls in love with Josephine, who's a disaster relief worker, and of course they're both very busy working in community. But I ended up with a soundtrack, and that actually, and I do that for most of my work now. I do it for myself, and then I find myself like, if the work is going to be made public somehow, then I curate it a little bit better, and then I put it out into the world. But it helps me. Music is really important to me, and how I get a message to, and it actually ends up working as a good writing prompt. Sometimes I'll be with a certain character, and I want to hear a couple of songs that I connect with a character, and I'm like, well, what would they think here? What would they do? And I've done things like their astrological charts, like if they were born in this day, with moon rising or whatever, do this kind of, what would they look like? What do they sound like? What do they tend to say? So I grab at anything I can to add some fullness, So I love music going to, for our books.
Yeah. No, I love the way you describe that, and of course, like the astrological signs and just like the whole natal chart, all of those things. I'm definitely into, and like I've been obsessed with making Spotify playlists pretty much all year, and started making them for every project I've been working on. Um, oh yeah, like that's a good one, Susie. Um, hmm, yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. Yeah, I really like the soundtrack to your book or soundtrack to your project. It can be really inspiring. I put in the chat, maybe we can share that, but even though I'm 35, I've been kind of obsessed with a younger artist, Ashniko, who is just doing some really interesting stuff with her work, but yeah, she has a song that she makes every Halloween, and is really into the body horror piece of that. And like she did an entire costume for her song, where her jaw was unhinging and her face was coming off, which I just really related to a lot. So that's definitely someone that has been shaping my year a lot, especially as 2021 continues to be kind of a dumpster fire. And not in all ways, but in a lot of ways. So, except for wonderful opportunities like this.
It's true. I mean, I know that it's been, we can't even say difficult anymore. Now it's kind of like a nuisance, right? I mean, if we forget about all those that have died, if we forget about those who are refusing ways to improve our lives overall, but I don't think, I mean, as a working class person returning to school now, my income keeps getting lower. So I'm like, what is wrong with you? So I'm going the wrong way, of course, to the American dream, but I'm happier now than I was, 2 years ago, having made choices based on partly on just being ready, and then partly on just COVID coming at the right time. But with COVID, I've been able to see or talk with or hear or sit in workshops with poets and other writers that I would have never been able to access. I mean,
Right.
except through a chance YouTube video that somebody would have bothered to record. I mean, to get to hear Raquel Salas Rivera reading, to sit in a workshop with Wo Chan. I mean, that doesn't
Yeah.
happen. I mean, I can't go flying to Chicago, to hear some of the Chicago great poets. But
Yeah.
I do hope, because I think I think it helps with those with disabilities too, that access.
Yeah.
But we forget, I mean, for working class folks, this incredible access, and I hope that doesn't go away once things normalize or as they normalize.
Yeah. No, in total agreement. And I would say that even though, I mean, as you know, kind of for me personally, the last few years have been challenging for a number of reasons, just a lot of health issues and stuff like that. And I think if I've taken anything from this time, even though it's been incredibly challenging for so many of us, is that the opportunities that we have created for community and for ways that we are connecting creatively, I think that's kind of what has helped sustain me, with friends like you and other folks in the literary community. And so that's kind of, I think, it kind of, like I said, it lays you bare, it lays you open, and really makes you reassess, where's your energy really going, and where does it need to go? And does it need to turn inward sometimes, before it turns outwards? And that's something I feel like I've had to learn a lot. I know we're reaching the end of our time.
This has been fun.
I
They
know.
probably are good to shut us up because we could keep going.
Of course, yeah. Then it'll just be a conversation. Yeah, then we'll just be comadreando, as my family says. Yeah.
I could listen to y'all talk all night.
Yeah, put a cup of coffee in my hand, I'd be here
know,
forever.
Right? I know. The hardest thing about these things not being in person is that we can always just continue the conversation,
Right.
Go get a drink, and like that's hard,
Yeah.
especially those of us who are poets, and we kind of that community is so very much who we are and what we do. So I hope the next time I host you guys, we're able to. I mean, we're close enough. New Mexico's close enough to Texas. It's. I've wanted to do a lot more with the Texas community. Y'all are the best. Just some of the most amazing poets and writers in San Antonio and Houston and Austin. It just it'll happen. It'll happen. So thank you both for this wonderful conversation. Thank you to the Word, always. Thank you to our wonderful community for coming out. And I'm pretty sure this will be recorded so people can access it. And I know Duende will always do at least some online, because we're everywhere and nowhere, right? So I think a lot of us have been talking about, like, keeping it hybrid. And I like the accessibility thing too. It's a big deal for us in all the ways.
But I also love Albuquerque and hope to be able to travel there soon. And if I do, then I will definitely
come see me. Yes. I need everybody to come see me. Come over to Red Planet and we'll party.
I'm down.
Yeah. Well, I wish you both all the luck. Suerte. Much love. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angela, and thank you so much, Susie, for having us.
And congrats, Leticia.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you, and congratulations on your beautiful books. I want to thank you for your readings. I want to thank our audience for listening, for those of you who are here live, and also for those of you who will be tuning in later, which is most of you. But it won't be too late to buy these books. So those links are in the comments. I hope that you'll continue to support these authors, continue to support Duende District, and also continue to support The Word. We are a nonprofit organization working to build a publishing community that will fight for inclusivity. And we work for all of us. So we love, of course, your support. You can find out more about our programs and what we're doing at thewordfordiversity.org. Thank you again, all of you, for being here tonight, for these beautiful words and for sharing them. And we will see you at our next author talk. Thanks again, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.